Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're looking at something I know you're really interested in, using drones and AI to detect crop diseases.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be focusing specifically on bacterial leaf blight,
Right.
or BLB.
Yeah.
And I know this is a huge problem for rice farmers.
Yeah.
We've got 2 scientific papers to help us kind of dig through this.
Okay.
Both of them are focused on Indonesian rice paddies.
Great. It's a good topic.
Yeah, so timely, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because
Especially in Indonesia.
rice is such a staple food for so many
Yep.
people,
Yeah.
particularly in that region.
Right.
And this disease can wipe out like up to half of a farmer's yield.
Yeah. It's devastating.
Half. That's a disaster.
Yeah.
So before we even get to the high-tech stuff,
Yeah.
can you kind of paint us a picture of what this BLB actually does to the plants?
So imagine like you're looking out at a rice paddy, and
Yeah.
instead of it being this like lush green, you start to see the edges of the leaves kind of turning yellow. And then it kind of goes to this like sickly whitish color.
Oh, wow.
And then the leaves themselves, they get all kind of wavy and distorted. So that's the BLB attacking.
So it's not just like a little spot. It's like
Yeah.
the whole...
It's the whole morphology of the leaf has changed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds awful. And the problem is catching it early is really tough, right?
Yeah.
So how have farmers traditionally dealt with this?
Well, traditionally, and I think this is still being done in many places, is you'll send people out into the fields
Okay.
to literally eyeball the plants.
Just look at them.
Yeah, look at them.
Okay.
So they have these pest observers. That's what they're called. Pest observers, POs.
Okay.
And so they will walk around, they'll check out a few, small plots of the rice.
Uh-huh.
And then they'll come back and basically make an educated guess about how bad the disease is for that whole area.
So very time-consuming and subjective process.
Very much so.
Okay. So I could see where technology might come in handy.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me about these papers. What do they do?
So these papers explore using drones,
Okay.
which are equipped with special cameras.
Uh-huh.
And these cameras can see beyond what the human eye can see.
Okay.
And so they flew these drones over rice paddies in West Java, Indonesia,
Cool.
which is known as the rice granary of the region.
Rice grain. I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got these drones snapping photos.
Yes.
But what kind of information are they actually capturing?
Well, they're not just taking pretty pictures.
Okay.
They're using these multispectral and RGB cameras
Okay.
to collect data on the light that's reflected by the plants.
Okay.
And then this data gets processed to create these like super detailed maps. They're called orthomosaics.
Uh-huh.
Imagine like a Google Maps view, but for a rice field.
Okay.
So you see every single plant.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing.
Okay. So we've got super detailed maps.
Yeah.
How does AI fit into all of this?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting, right? Because the researchers, they trained AI to analyze the data
Uh-huh.
from the drone images and act like these BLB detectives.
Oh, wow.
So one of the papers focuses on something called textural analysis.
Textural analysis.
Yeah.
That sounds intriguing.
It is. It is. So imagine the AI.
Okay.
It's learning to recognize the texture of a diseased leaf just from the drone photos.
On the photos. Yeah. Okay.
Almost like how, if you were to run your fingers over a piece of fabric,
Uh-huh.
you could tell if it was silk or cotton just by the feel.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of looking for these telltale signs of BLB that might not be obvious to the naked eye.
So the AI is looking for subtle clues, like those
Yeah.
tiny, tiny changes
Exactly.
in the surface of the leaves.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
It is.
Did they find anything surprising when they were training the AI?
Well, yeah, they found some really interesting things.
Okay.
So one fascinating discovery was that combining these textural features with a new index they developed called NDTI,
Okay.
which stands for Normalized Difference Texture Index,
Oh.
made the results even more accurate.
So the NDTI is like giving the AI an even more powerful, like, magnifying glass.
It is, yeah. It's kind of like another layer of information that
Yeah.
helps the AI zero in on those really fine details.
Okay. Now, what about the second paper?
Yeah.
Didn't it use like a completely different approach?
Yeah, totally different.
Okay.
So that one explores what's called patch fragmentation analysis.
Okay.
So imagine you're looking at a map
Okay.
and you see all these clusters of disease and you're seeing how they're spread out, their size, their shape, how connected they are.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
Mhm.
like looking at like a satellite image of a
like that,
forest
yeah.
fire
Yeah.
and seeing all those burned areas.
Exactly. So you can see where the fire has been.
Okay, got it.
And this spatial information can be super valuable for understanding how the disease might spread
Right.
and predicting its future impact.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've got two really innovative approaches here.
Right.
We've got textural analysis,
Right.
which is looking at those fine details of the leaves.
Exactly.
And then we've got patch fragmentation analysis,
Yeah.
which is analyzing the patterns of how the disease is spreading.
Exactly.
Okay, so both sound really promising.
Yeah, they are very promising.
How did they actually train the AI to do all of this?
So it all comes down to machine learning.
Okay.
So basically, they fed the AI a ton of grown data
Uh-huh.
along with those assessments from those pest observers we talked about earlier.
Right.
So think of it like they were showing the AI flashcards.
Okay.
This is what BLB looks like in a drone photo.
Okay.
This is what it looks like in the field.
Gotcha.
And so through this repetition,
Mhm.
through showing tons of examples,
Uh-huh.
the AI learns to connect the dots
Oh,
between those drone images and the actual severity of the disease in the real world.
so it's learning to connect the dots? That's pretty smart.
Yeah,
Oh.
it is.
And then to make sure the AI isn't biased by having more data on some levels of the disease than others,
Yeah,
they use a technique called CSOTE,
right.
synthetic minority oversampling technique.
It's a mouthful,
It is a mouthful.
but it's basically a way of creating synthetic data points to balance things out.
So it's making sure it has like a balanced diet of information.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. After all this training, did the AI actually prove to be a good BLB detective?
It actually did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were the results promising?
Yeah, the results were surprisingly good.
Okay.
So both the textural analysis and the patch fragmentation analysis were very effective at identifying BLB damage,
Okay.
particularly at the lowest and highest levels of disease severity.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you think those extreme cases
Yeah.
were easier for the AI to detect?
Well, it could be that those extreme cases have like the most distinctive features,
Okay.
either visually or spatially, making them easier for the AI to pick up on.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But what's really exciting is that both of these AI-powered methods outperformed the traditional techniques
Wow.
that rely solely on analyzing the plant's color and reflectance.
So it's not just about having fancy tech.
No.
It's about using it in a smart way.
Exactly. Exactly. It's about how you apply it.
And that's what this research is all about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the implications of this are huge.
Okay.
So think about crop insurance.
Okay.
With these, much more detailed assessments, insurance payouts could be much fairer
Okay.
because they're based on this precise data rather than just broad generalizations.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And potentially huge cost savings, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of costs, let's talk about like the practical side of things.
Yeah.
Drones and AI sound expensive.
They can be.
Is this technology actually feasible for like real world use?
That's the key question. Yeah.
So while the initial setup with the drones might be more time consuming than sending out the pest observers, remember, these drones can assess vast areas in a single flight.
Oh, okay.
So that leads to massive time savings in the long run.
Oh, okay.
And one paper estimated a potential time saving of up to 7.4 days per area.
7.4 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of time.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So even though that initial investment might be higher,
Right.
the long-term gains in efficiency and accuracy could make it like a game changer for farmers.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. And here's another fascinating detail.
Okay.
The textural analysis method can potentially be used with just standard RGB cameras,
Oh, wow.
which are much cheaper than those fancy multispectral ones.
So even if farmers with like more limited resources could benefit from this technology.
Yeah, potentially.
That's really exciting.
It is. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we're seeing this convergence of drones, AI, and big data in agriculture.
And it has the potential to revolutionize the way we grow food.
Yeah.
Not just for rice, but for all kinds of crops.
It's like taking the guesswork out of farming
It is.
and replacing it with like data-driven insights.
It's precision agriculture.
And that has implications far beyond just increasing yields, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like what else could this do?
Well, it's about sustainability, too.
Okay.
So imagine using fewer pesticides and herbicides
Oh, okay.
because you're only treating the areas that actually need it.
Right.
Yeah.
There'll be a huge win for the environment.
Huge win.
And for feeding a growing population,
Absolutely.
this technology could be crucial for addressing global food security challenges.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we need to produce more food with fewer resources,
Yeah.
and these technologies can play a key role in making that happen.
Okay.
But there are still challenges ahead.
Okay.
So we need further research and development to
Okay.
refine these methods
All right.
and make them more widely accessible.
Okay, so there's still work to be done,
Yeah,
but the potential is enormous.
absolutely.
Now, let's dive a little deeper into some of those fascinating details from the research.
Okay.
I'm particularly intrigued by that new index they developed, NDTI, for textural analysis.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a bit more for us?
Yeah, so NDTI is basically a way of quantifying the texture of an image.
Okay.
So think of it like, other indices quantify color or reflectance. And it's derived by comparing two different Haralick textural features.
Haralick textural features.
Yeah.
Those sound pretty technical.
They are, but let me try and break it down.
Okay.
So imagine you're describing the texture of a surface to someone who can't see it.
Okay.
You might talk about how rough or smooth it is, how evenly spaced the bumps are,
Okay.
or how much contrast there is between different areas.
Gotcha. Okay.
So those Haralick features are basically a way of describing those textural qualities mathematically.
Okay. So they're taking what we can intuitively see and feel,
It's exactly.
and they're putting numbers to it.
Exactly. They're capturing the spatial relationships between different pixels in an image.
Okay.
And NDTI is calculated by comparing two specific Haralick features, giving us a single value that represents the overall texture of the image.
Okay.
And they found that incorporating NDTI into their analysis actually improved the accuracy of BLB detection.
So it's like giving the AI another piece of the puzzle to work with.
Exactly. It's like giving it a more detailed fingerprint of the disease.
I like that. Okay. Now, I also wanted to delve a bit deeper into that patch fragmentation analysis from the second paper. Can you unpack those specific metrics they used to measure fragmentation?
Yeah. So they used a whole range of metrics.
Okay.
Each one provides a different piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
So the first one was simply the number of patches,
Okay.
which tells you how many distinct clusters
Okay.
of diseased areas there are in the field. A higher number of patches generally indicates more fragmentation, which could mean the disease is more widespread or spreading more rapidly.
So more patches, generally not a good sign.
Not a good sign.
Okay.
They also looked at the mean patch area,
Okay.
which gives you an idea of the average size of those clusters.
Gotcha.
Smaller patches might suggest that the disease is still in its early stages,
Okay.
while larger patches could indicate that it's been spreading for a while.
So those two kind of give you a basic snapshot of how widespread it is.
Yeah, just a basic, overview.
Okay. Cool.
And then they got into some more complex metrics.
Right,
So
okay.
they calculated the mean fractal dimension index.
Mean fractal dimension index. That sounds complicated.
It sounds very complicated, but it's a pretty cool concept.
Okay.
So imagine a simple circle versus a really jagged, irregular shape.
Okay.
That fractal dimension index quantifies that complexity.
Oh, okay.
More complex shapes might indicate a more aggressive or advanced stage of the disease.
So the disease is actively branching out
Yeah, it's branching out.
and creating these intricate patterns.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
And then any other metrics?
Well, they also looked at the largest patch index,
Okay.
which tells you what percentage of the total area is covered by that largest patch.
Okay.
So this can give you a sense of whether the disease is concentrated in one major outbreak or if it's kind of spread more evenly throughout the field.
Right. So if it was high, it would mean that there's one big hot spot.
Exactly. One big hot spot that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Okay. Did they consider how connected the patches were?
They did.
How easily the disease could jump from one patch to another?
Exactly. So that's measured by a metric called cohesion.
Okay.
You can imagine these patches like islands.
Okay.
If they're close together or even connected by these little bridges,
Yeah.
it's much easier for something to move between them.
That's a great visual. Makes it much easier to understand how these metrics can actually help predict the spread.
Yeah. And they also used a metric called the landscape shape index,
Okay.
which looks at the overall complexity of that landscape, how convoluted or simple the boundaries between those diseased and healthy areas are.
Okay. So they've got all this drone data.
Yeah.
They've processed it.
Yes.
Calculated all these fragmentation metrics. What happens next? How do they actually train the AI to make sense of it all?
So this is where that machine learning magic happens.
Okay.
So they use a technique called supervised learning, where they feed the AI a set of training data that includes both those fragmentation metrics and the corresponding BLB damage scores that were actually observed in the field.
So it's like showing it a bunch of examples and saying, okay, when the fragmentation looks like this, the damage score is usually this.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. So the AI uses that training data to build a mathematical model that can then predict the BLB damage score based on those fragmentation metrics.
So it's almost like creating a formula, but instead of it being based on simple numbers, it's based on these like complex patterns.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty amazing.
And what kind of machine learning algorithm did they use to create this model?
Well, they chose to use what's called a random forest algorithm, which is known for its accuracy and robustness, especially for tasks involving complex data like this.
Okay, so random forest is kind of like the all-star player.
It is, yeah. One of the more popular algorithms.
Yeah, in the world of machine learning algorithms.
Yeah, okay.
But before they could feed all this data to the algorithm, they had to deal with a problem that's actually pretty common in machine learning, right?
Right.
Something about imbalanced data sets.
Right. So in this case, they had significantly fewer samples for BLB damage scores of 1 and 7 compared to scores of 3 and 5.
Okay.
So imagine a classroom full of students where most of them are average height, but there's only a few who are very short or very tall.
Okay, so the AI is getting like a skewed view of the world.
Exactly. And if you're not careful, that can bias the algorithm towards those more common cases.
Right.
So to address this, they used a technique called SMOT-A.
SMOT-A. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's a popular technique.
Didn't we talk about that in a previous episode?
We might have, yeah. So it's a clever way of creating synthetic data points for those underrepresented classes to balance things out.
So instead of just like copying the existing data points, it actually creates new ones.
Exactly.
Based on the patterns that it learns from the existing data.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's filling in the gaps to create a more complete picture.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so after applying SMOT-A, they had a more balanced data set that they could confidently feed to that random forest algorithm.
Exactly.
Okay, and then comes the exciting part, right?
Yes.
Evaluating how well the model actually performs.
Exactly. So they used a technique called k-fold cross-validation to assess the model's performance. This involves splitting the data into multiple subsets, training the model on some of the subsets, and then testing it on the remaining subsets. This helps ensure that the model is what we call generalizable, meaning it can accurately predict outcomes on data that it hasn't seen before.
So it's like giving it a pop quiz to make sure it really understands the material. Not just memorizing the answers.
Yeah. And to quantify the model's performance, they use a variety of metrics, including AUC, or area under the curve, which measures the model's ability to distinguish between those different classes, and classification accuracy, which tells you how often the model predicts the correct damage score.
So AUC is kind of like a measure of how good it is at separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak.
That's a great way to put it.
And then the classification accuracy is like how often it gets the answer right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Got it. And the results were very encouraging. So for the model that used all the fragmentation metrics and a sampling window area of 0.5 meters, the AUC was 0.938.
Wow. 0.938.
Yeah. That's really high. And the classification accuracy for that model was 0.76, meaning it predicted the correct damage score 76% of the time.
Oh, wow.
Now, keep in mind that was just for the model that used all the features. They also ran analyses using only selected features. And even those models perform well, with AUCs ranging from 0.867 to 0.922.
So even with a more streamlined set of features, it was still able to get pretty impressive results.
Yeah, exactly.
Do they notice any interesting patterns in terms of which features were most important for accurate prediction?
They did. So they found that the number of patches, the largest patch index, and that means fractal dimension index, were frequently among the top predictors.
Oh, so it seems like those metrics that are capturing the size, the complexity, and the distribution of those diseased areas are the most valuable clues for the AI.
They are, yeah. They're most closely correlated with the severity of the disease.
Ugh.
What's really exciting is they validated the model using real-world UAV images
Cool.
from 2 different locations.
So they took it out of the lab and into the real world.
They did.
Oh, yeah.
And the results were very encouraging.
Huh?
So the AI's predicted BLB damage intensities were incredibly close to the assessments that were made by human experts.
Wow. So the AI was basically on par with the human experts.
Pretty much.
That's incredible.
It is. It's a huge testament to the power of this approach.
Okay.
It suggests that we can potentially automate this process,
Right.
freeing up those pest observers for other important tasks,
Okay.
while still getting accurate and reliable data on disease severity.
And not just accurate data, but like way more detail. Data than what those pest observers were able to collect.
Yeah, absolutely.
That level of detail could be incredibly valuable for like targeted interventions, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like applying pesticides only to the areas that are most affected.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
So it allows for a much more precise and efficient approach to disease management.
Yeah.
And remember that time saving of 7.4 days per area that we talked about earlier?
I do.
That's a real game changer.
A lot of time.
So even though there's an initial investment in that drone technology,
Right.
the long-term benefits in terms of time, cost, and accuracy
Absolutely.
could be pretty significant.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, keep in mind, this was just one study
Right.
focusing on one specific disease in one region.
Yeah.
But the potential applications for this type of technology,
Oh, my gosh.
vast.
Huge.
It's mind-boggling to think about all the possibilities.
Yeah.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, I think it's important to acknowledge that even the researchers themselves pointed out some limitations of their study.
They did.
Every study has limitations.
Of course.
And understanding those is really crucial for interpreting the results and guiding future research.
Absolutely.
So what were some of the key limitations of this one?
Well, one limitation is they only tested one type of machine learning algorithm, the random forest.
Okay.
It's possible that other algorithms might perform even better on this type of data.
It's always good to explore different options and see what works best.
Yeah.
Okay. And what other limitations did they mention?
They also acknowledged that the study was conducted using samples under very similar conditions, particularly in terms of the growth stage of the rice plants.
Oh, okay.
So it's possible that the model's performance might vary if it were applied to plants at different growth stages or in different environmental conditions.
So it's like saying, okay, we know this works great in this specific scenario, but we need to see how it performs
out in the wild.
In the real world, where things are rarely so neatly controlled.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of science.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process of discovery, refinement, and validation.
Always pushing the boundaries of what we know and what we can achieve.
Exactly. And that's why it's so exciting to be following these developments. I mean, we're seeing these innovations that have the potential to not only increase productivity, but also address some of the most pressing challenges.
Like food security, climate change.
Exactly.
Environmental sustainability.
Well, the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of drones and AI in agriculture. We've learned so much about the devastating impact of BLB, the limitations of those traditional detection methods, and how these new technologies are being used to create these incredibly powerful...
Welcome back.
All right, so before we jump back in, I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier about the drones themselves.
Right.
You said they use both multispectral and RGB cameras. Can you explain what those are?
Yeah.
And why they're important for this kind of research?
Sure. So RGB cameras are the ones that you're probably already familiar with. They capture images in the same red, green, and blue color spectrum that our eyes see. But multispectral cameras, those capture light in several specific bands beyond the visible spectrum. So they're allowing researchers to see things like chlorophyll content, and plant stress that wouldn't be visible to the naked eye.
So it's like giving the drones superpowers.
It is.
Letting them see the plant world in a whole new light.
Yeah.
And that extra information is crucial for detecting diseases like BLB, right?
It is. It's like getting a glimpse into the plant's health records by analyzing the different bands of light reflected by the plants. The researchers can identify subtle signs of disease that might not be apparent.
Gotcha.
in just a regular color photo.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier that the drone images are processed to create these super detailed maps called orthomosaics. Can you explain a bit more about what those are and how they're made?
Think of it like piecing together a giant jigsaw puzzle.
Okay.
But instead of cardboard pieces, we're using hundreds or even thousands of overlapping drone images.
Oh, wow.
The software takes these images, corrects for distortions, and stitches them together seamlessly to create one giant high-resolution image of the entire field.
So it's like creating a giant aerial tapestry of the rice paddy.
It is.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And because the images are corrected for distortions, the map is incredibly accurate, right?
Very accurate, yes.
Wow, okay.
And that accuracy is crucial for the next step, which is analyzing those maps for signs of BLB.
Now, we talked about how the AI is trained
Yes.
using a technique called supervised learning, where it's fed tons of data along with the corresponding BLB damage scores.
Right.
Can you walk us through how that process actually works?
So it's kind of like teaching a child to recognize different types of fruit.
Okay.
You show them an apple and you say, this is an apple.
Yeah.
You show them a banana and you say, this is a banana.
Okay.
With enough examples, they start to learn the distinguishing features of each fruit.
Gotcha.
And can identify them on their own.
So in this case, instead of fruits, we're talking about patterns of BLB damage.
We are.
In the drone images.
Yes.
Okay.
The researchers show the AI tons of examples of drone images with varying levels of BLB damage.
Okay.
And they tell the AI what the actual damage score is for each image.
Gotcha.
The AI then uses this information to build a model, a set of rules that it can use to predict the damage score for new unseen images.
So you're giving the AI a detective's handbook.
You are.
Teaching it to look for the subtle clues
Absolutely.
that reveal the presence and severity of BLB.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
It is. It's pretty amazing.
Now, and remember you mentioned something called Otsu thresholding.
Yes.
Where does that fit into all of this?
So Otsu thresholding is a clever way to help the AI focus on the most important information.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about the drones capturing images in different bands of light?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes those images can be a bit noisy or have a lot of variation that makes it hard for the AI to see the patterns clearly.
So it's like trying to find a specific book in a really cluttered library.
Exactly. Too much stuff in the way.
Yeah.
Otsu thresholding helps to declutter those images by converting them into a simpler black and white format.
Okay.
It's like highlighting the areas with BLB damage in bright white and leaving the healthy areas in black.
Okay.
Making it much easier for the AI to see the patterns of disease distribution.
So you're giving the AI a pair of X-ray glasses.
You are.
That can see through all the clutter and focus on the disease itself.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the drone data.
Yeah.
We've processed it. We've applied Otsu thresholding.
Right.
We've calculated those fragmentation metrics.
Yeah.
And we've trained the AI.
Right.
What happens next?
Okay.
How do we actually put all this into practice?
So here's where things get really exciting.
Okay.
So imagine a farmer who is concerned about BLB in their rice paddy. They hire a drone operator to fly the drone over the field, capturing those multispectral images that we talked about. The images are then fed into the AI model, which has been trained on all those previous examples of BLB damage. And within minutes, the AI spits out a map of the field.
Oh, wow.
Highlighting areas with varying levels of BLB severity.
So they get this almost real-time snapshot of the health of their field.
They do.
Showing them exactly where the disease is hitting hardest.
Exactly, and that information is incredibly valuable. So the farmer can then use this information to make informed decisions about how to manage the disease. Instead of spraying the entire field with pesticides, which is expensive and potentially harmful to the environment, they can target their treatments to just the affected areas, minimizing the use of chemicals, and potentially saving a lot of money.
That's a huge win for both the farmer's bottom line and the environment.
It is.
That's amazing.
And it doesn't stop there.
Okay.
This kind of information can also be used to inform crop insurance claims, optimize irrigation and fertilization strategies, and even predict future outbreaks of the disease.
So it's like having a crystal ball.
It is.
For your rice paddy.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
But this is just for BLB in rice, right?
Right.
What about other diseases and other crops?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And the answer is a resounding yes.
Okay.
The techniques used in these studies are not limited to just BLB or rice.
Okay.
The beauty of this approach is that it can be adapted to detect and manage a wide range of plant diseases across various crops.
So we could be talking about, like, citrus greening in oranges, coffee leaf rust in coffee plantations.
Yes.
Or even diseases in forests.
Absolutely.
And natural ecosystems.
Yes.
Wow.
Imagine being able to monitor the health of entire forests using drones and AI.
Yeah.
Identifying areas affected by pests or diseases before they cause widespread damage.
That's incredible.
It is.
It's like giving our planet a checkup.
Yeah.
Making sure everything is healthy and thriving.
It is.
But this is just the beginning, right?
It is. This field is evolving so rapidly, and we're just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible. As the technology continues to improve, we can expect to see even more innovative applications of drones and AI in agriculture and beyond.
It's exciting to think about what the future holds. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yes, we have.
We've talked about the devastating impact of BLB,
the
limitations of traditional detection methods,
yes,
and how drones and AI are being used to create these incredibly powerful and precise detection systems.
Yes.
But before we wrap things up, there's one more area I wanted to explore with you.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the AI models were particularly good at detecting those extreme cases of BLB.
Yeah.
The very low and very high levels of disease severity. Why do you think that might be?
Well, it could be because at those extreme levels, the visual and spatial cues of the disease are simply more pronounced, making them easier for the AI to pick up on.
So like in the early stages, there might be just a few subtle lesions on the leaves?
Right.
But when the disease is really advanced, the damage is much more extensive.
It is.
And easier to spot.
Yeah, and that suggests that these AI-powered methods could be particularly valuable for early detection and rapid response.
Okay.
Imagine being able to pinpoint those initial outbreaks before they have a chance to spread widely.
That could be a game changer for disease management.
It would be.
It's like catching a fire when it's still small and manageable.
Exactly.
Before it turns into a full-blown wildfire.
Yes. Early intervention is key.
Right.
And these technologies give us the tools to do that more effectively than ever before.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've learned so much about the devastating impact of BLB, the limitations of traditional detection methods, and how drones and AI are being used to create these incredibly powerful and precise detection systems.
Absolutely. It really highlights the transformative potential of these technologies.
Yeah.
Not just for agriculture, but for so many aspects of our lives.
It's exciting to think about what the future holds.
It is.
A huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey.
Yes, thank you.
But this isn't the end of our deep dive. We'll be back in part 3 to wrap things up and explore some even more mind-blowing possibilities for this technology.
I'm excited.
Until then, keep those brains buzzing. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're wrapping up our exploration of drones and AI in agriculture. And I'm still buzzing from all the incredible possibilities we've uncovered.
It's been a wild ride, hasn't it?
It has.
From those detailed maps to the AI acting like plant detectives.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see how these technologies are converging to transform the way we grow food.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned earlier that these techniques could be applied to a wide range of crops and even ecosystems.
Right.
But what about the bigger picture?
Yeah.
How could this technology impact things like global food security?
Oh, that's a big one.
Or climate change?
That's where it gets really exciting.
Okay.
Imagine a world where we can use drones and AI to monitor the health of entire forests.
Okay.
Identify areas affected by drought or pests.
Wow.
And even predict crop yields with incredible accuracy.
That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But this is the future we're moving towards.
Okay.
By using data and technology to optimize farming practices, we can potentially produce more food with less water, less land, and fewer chemical inputs.
That's a huge win for the environment.
It is a huge win.
And it could be crucial for feeding a growing population.
Absolutely.
We've talked a lot about the benefits of this technology.
Right.
But I think it's also important to acknowledge that there are potential challenges and risks as well.
Of course.
What are some things we need to be mindful of
as
this technology continues to develop?
That's a crucial point. Like any powerful tool,
Right.
this technology needs to be used responsibly.
Okay.
We need to be mindful of things like data privacy, ensuring that the data collected by these drones is used ethically and transparently.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And what about access to this technology?
Yeah.
Will it be available to all farmers? Or will it only benefit those with the resources to invest in it?
That's a critical question. We need to make sure that this technology is accessible and affordable for all farmers, not just large-scale operations. Otherwise, we risk exacerbating existing inequalities in the agricultural sector.
So we need to think about not just the technological challenges, but also the social and economic implications of this technology.
Absolutely.
It's not just about developing the tools. It's about ensuring that they're used in a way that benefits everyone.
Exactly. It's about using technology to create a more sustainable, equitable, and resilient food system for all.
That's a future worth striving for.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've learned about the devastating impact of BLB, the limitations of traditional detection methods, and how drones and AI are being used to create these incredibly powerful and precise detection systems.
Powerful stuff.
We've also discussed the broader implications of this technology for global food security, climate change, and the future of agriculture as a whole.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's been a truly mind-expanding journey.
It has.
It has. A huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And a big thank you to our listeners for joining us on this fascinating journey of discovery.
Absolutely.
If you're interested in learning more about this incredible technology, we'll be sure to include some links in the show notes.
Sure.
And if you have any burning questions you'd like us to tackle in a future episode, don't hesitate to reach out. Until next time, happy diving.